Well, I'm very, very happy and proud to announce a UAT alum of James Grant being here today. James actually just graduated digital art design here in 2009 from UAT. He's been a really wonderful fixture at the school and a really great mentor in many ways. He's been very inspiring with the work that he's done. He's always been a great contributor for us for UAT Digital Days at the Arizona Science Center. Really kind of always had a call to action to do something that was above and beyond kind of what was expected of him. His portfolio is fantastic. He is really a quintessential UAT student, and I think has really maximized what he's learned here and moving out into the workforce. He is basically coming back from a year residency at Fabrica, which is a Benetton offshoot. I don't know if you're familiar with the clothing company Benetton. Very large in Europe, East Coast as well. He's going to show you some pretty impressive work. He is going to be presenting today on algorithmic art and getting your name out there and how to get a job. And I'm happy to announce Mr. James Grant. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. I couldn't think of a title for this, but so that's what I got. Right, so like he said, I'm a design major. This is just some of my design. This is what I was, what? A little, is the volume good or louder, 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 louder? Good? All right. So this is some of my design work. Some of it's been published in a few magazines. But this is my degree, and this is what I was doing when I was introduced to algorithmic art. I know most of you probably know what it is, but it's really, really simply it's just programming that creates art. So this is one of the examples from one of my favorite artists, Robert Hodgson. And these are all just interacting with each other. So you never know what's going to happen in the code that produces this. But you can do some really interesting things. You can do sound, video stuff. This is just behavioral mapping, basically. Right, let me go back. Sorry. Okay, so I was taking these algorithmic art class, and I stumbled upon data visualization with Todd Spencer. And we wanted to do a project to do the stock market. And so we looked at some other current projects that were around for the stock market, and then wanted to take it a step further. So this was the project that kind of started everything for me as far as getting into Italy. Let me just show you real quick. I'm going to talk over this and then let it go. Great. Let me let it load. I loaded everything. I don't know why. So this project, we decided to tackle visualizing the S&P 500, and we wanted to pull the stock data live and do it in a way that had never been done before, and to try to make it more understandable for everyday people. With this project, we just started messing around. Neither of us knew exactly what we were doing, but we knew what we wanted to do, and we found out ways to do it. And that's how I've done a lot of things. It's just, I knew what I wanted to do, and I just went out and did it. So let me just get this playing now. Cool. Oh, man. Okay. So we were messing around with this, and we saw that GDC was doing a data visual, not GDC, SIGGRAPH was doing a data visualization theme that year, and we decided to apply, not expecting much of anything, but we liked what we were doing, and we thought we might have a chance. And we ended up being able to present the project at SIGGRAPH, one of the biggest conferences for digital design each year. And I met some amazing people. Everything else is preloaded, and sorry about this. Anyway, just go back. But this is where I realized that I was going to be able to get out into the world doing the stuff like this. From here, Vesna happened to have a connection with Fabrica in Italy. This is Fabrica, the building. And I went out for a workshop. It happened to be a workshop in Algorithmic Art. And it was a week long, and it was a programming language I didn't know. And I just made sure I did everything that I could do in the week. And while I was there, I asked them if I could come back for a year. And they liked my work, and they invited me back for the full year. So I ended up spending a year in Italy working, doing projects that I wanted to do, which is a chance you really aren't going to get that often. The big project I did while I was there was tackling the World Bank data, which was something like 5 million pieces of data for countries over the world. So these are just some of the charts that I designed. This one was, This was to show whether or not there was data available for a country on a topic within a 5-year period. The thing with data visualization, as far as how I approach it, is I want to take familiar things you're used to, like an on and off switch, and then expand them to be able to show more data than what you normally used to see, but do it in a way where you're not uncomfortable with it. So you can see, if you look down here, you're able to change the numbers of years on this. So you can make it something something that you can understand, whether it's 1 year or 5 years. Sorry. So, and this is the rest of the sketch for the project. It was a really, really massive project, like I said, with all the data points. And there was lots of different charts that I had to design. So we had whether or not the data was available chart. This was data over time chart. So this, if these, you can set what data points are here and here. And this way, if these 2 points are related, not only is the color bar giving you information, but the difference in the white space tells you how they're affecting each other over time. And so all of this stuff you could edit to be either 1 year or 10 years to get the data you wanted out of it in the way you wanted to see it. So that's kind of my design theory for this stuff. This is, and what it says on the right is, you know these symbols, just not in this order. And so what I try to do is present things in a way that you recognize it at first, but then pushes you to learn the next step and learn the next step. So that you're, through the data visualization, you're being able to understand more than you probably thought you could when you started. And then I did an expansion from the original stock. I'm just going to show a little bit of this. The internet, sorry, the internet's really slow. So very similar to the old stock, but I'm gonna have to let this load. But so this was for a competition that the World Bank was doing, and with the competition, there was a community site where they just opened up the data, and they hadn't really done any work to it. No one had worked with it at this scale that they were asking people to do before. So while messing around with it, I started finding problems in their data and started fixing it to them, and ended up having a back and forth with the developers on their end to try to make sure that the data was as usable, as user-friendly as possible for everyone. And it's stuff like that that ends up getting you recognized by the rest of the community. Which I always recommend. So you can see here, finally it's loaded enough. With the new version of this system, you can take it from that big, very complicated image down to just a simple line graph, and just the data is over distance. And so eventually, there you go. You can then add new layers as you understand them. So you go from having just one data point for all of the 312 countries up to 6 data points. And you can see that here. But you can control what data goes to which visual system. So you can create your own chart and make everything very customizable. In data visualization, customization is the key because not everyone understands things the same way. So some people are going to want it this way and some people are going to want it that way. And if you can make it so that people can fix things themselves, they're much more likely to start taking the steps to try to start understanding things. All right. So that's the data visualization stuff. The other thing I had to do for Benetton, they have all these clothing stores around Europe, and they installed these massive video screens in them. So we were tasked with doing development of videos for the screen. So I'm just going to show you just the process I went through of doing quick prototypes. So there's 2 quick prototypes that I did just to start messing around with visual things for these screens. So this was trying to go for a comic book effect based on color, because Benetton's all about color. And so this was weeks of me staring at my computer like an idiot and recording video. So this one, they said, like, they liked the idea, but they wanted to focus more on color. So it evolved into this here, which I don't know, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you guys, but does anyone remember the Hypercolor shirts, where if you heated them up, they changed color? So the idea was in this, as you would heat it up with the colors, and then it would blend back in. So these are both done in processing in about a week worth of code, just messing around, trying to get something that was colorful and worked for Benetton. And when you're working with a corporate client like that, you have a lot of things that you're never, like, that you've never dealt with before, and so it's an interesting experience.
Is processing the primary language that you use?
I use processing in open frameworks. Processing is based on Java, and open frameworks based on C++. There's Cinder as well, but I haven't looked into it. So. And then there's processing JS, which does JavaScript, and processing 2 is going to do HTML5, which is pretty cool, actually. So from here, the other thing we got to do at Fabrica was, while we were doing all of this stuff that we had to do, every couple months someone would come in and, as a professional from the outside world, and do a workshop. So this guy from South Africa came. He's a famous music video director, came in, and we had to work with video projects. So I'm messing around with this Windows system right before that, and everyone's constantly coming around my screen because it's starting to look pretty cool. And so we decided to do a video based on Bruce Lee using a particle system that I'm writing. And so I'll just show you that so you can see the evolution going to the next step. So the workshop was based on motion, and we were contrasting mechanical motion versus more organic motion. And all you're seeing here is just a grid of dots with the color pulled out of the video very lightly. And the movement is based on the movement from the video. But it's just the dots moving. Can you guys see it okay? Is the light's too bright?
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
And one of the really cool things about these workshops is that they were constantly they were pulling people from all different areas. So, like if I pause it here, oops, sorry. Angelo was from interactive. Grant was from visual communication. Pablo was from video. John was the resident musician, and I was from interactive. And so you got these multidiscipline groups, and you didn't always know what you were doing, but you were getting input from all different directions, which I think is really helpful. I did a few projects like that at UAT, and it's just really good to know how to work with different people and to get out of your little area and see how other people deal with problems. So I highly recommend it. And then, so this is what the final project turned out of this particle system. And this was shot in Milan, and I'll bring up the real system after this. We waited hours for some kids to come up because kids are the only people that play in public. This is in the middle of a big square, but kids are the only people that play in public spaces and jump around like idiots, and they make great video footage. So this is the system here. And this was the first really corporate thing I had to do. So you guys are on camera, if you guys want to move around. The camera is right here. Sorry. I'll turn it around real quick. So because it's really corporate, there's things you have to take into account. And as I'm doing this project, I'm constantly being told, oh no, it's got to be more Benetton. It's got to be more Benetton. So this is how it's, because they wanted to sell the product in the stores like the normal mannequins. So it's a fun little system. I can leave it running if you guys want to play with it. But basically, they all have homes, and as they get further away from their home, on one cycle they get bigger, and on the other cycle they get smaller. And then it cycles between just having a grid home and having a home that forms a product. So turn it back around for you guys. Yeah. So that's how I turned one really good idea into a year in Italy and meeting some amazing people and making some great friends. And I mean, I got to travel all around Europe because of a project that me and Todd thought of in, what classroom was it? Yeah, the little upstairs classroom in a one-person class. And that's always been the thing I've liked the most about UAT is I was a digital design major, and I could take classes that had nothing to do with digital design, really. But they're classes that sounded interesting. I was able to do things out of my comfort zone that ended up being really cool. Are you guys done playing with it? What's up?
When did you start learning programming?
I had messed around with programming in high school and then done a couple semesters before I came to UAT, but that was mostly Flash. Oh, and I took some classes with Vesna to do Flash, but I had given up on programming when I started doing this. The way I got into it was all of these are open source languages, so people publish code, and I wanted to do a digital version of eBrew, which is ink dropped on water and then they swirl around. So I found a water system that someone had done the code and made open source, and I just started breaking it apart and saying like, okay, this does this, this does this, and this does this. And it's like the system, like especially processing, it's set up for anyone to really just jump in and start messing around like that. And as you get into it, if you come across a problem, you can always Google things. The forums and the communities are great on both processing and open frameworks. If a lot of times there's already a library that does the stuff you want to do, and it's just a matter of you jumping in there and configuring it. So I'd always tell everyone, like, whether you're a programmer or you're a designer, you could probably do processing and like make stuff that you have fun playing with. Like, that's this thing. It was like I knew it was pretty good when I could just call people over and they would just stop what they were doing and like mess around with it for 5 minutes. And that's what a lot of the algorithmic art, like, I mean, the data visualization stuff for me is really cool because it's, you know, like helping people better understand things, but this stuff is just fun. So, any other questions for Vesna? You mean at Fabrica? Yeah. I tell everyone to get out of the States, not permanently, but just expand your world. Just see how other people do things. Like, the coolest part about Fabrica was meeting all the people. My roommate was Chilean. I worked with people from South Africa, from China, from Japan, from England, from everywhere, and just having the culture class and seeing how different people design things, how different people approach different problems. It completely changes your outlook on the world. And just the idea of what you can try to tackle. This is a Benetot ad that we were messing around with. Is that good? Like, does that touch on what you wanted, Vesna?
Yeah, because it was very interesting because recently we went to Denver conference. It was the Visualization conference where people in design and art from all over the world, they got together. And after talking to so many people, they were from Europe, they're saying how US students are very reluctant to go to Europe and spend some time there. So that's why, you know, I just wanted to spread the word and just talk about your
Yeah.
experience for the education so that our students understand the global aspect of it.
I mean, for me, it started with meeting people at SIGGRAPH. It's, especially in this field, but I mean, in every field, it's an international process. I mean, whether you're in design, whether you're in video games, whether you're in video, you're probably going to work with someone outside the US. And if you're doing it outside the US, you're probably going to learn more than you're learning if you're here. So at this point, I've been invited out to London and had all of my expenses paid because I made a friend. And that's, I mean, I'm going to touch on it when I get to the job stuff, but having that network of people all around the world just gives you a better chance to have some opportunities come up. And getting to go to Florence is pretty amazing too. I mean, I tell everyone, I tell my brothers to just get out and see the rest of the world because it's going to open your eyes to things you've never thought about. So, I know it's expensive, but it's totally worth it. Okay, I think that's good on that. Okay, so yeah, how did all that happen, and how can you try to do something similar? The first thing is just make your work available and get it out there. How many of you guys have a website? I mean, like, everyone should have a website, and you should be your best hype man. Like, always be putting your get on Twitter, follow the people that you want to be. And start hitting them up and just see where you get. I mean, like, become recognizable, become someone who people associate with what you want to do, and you'll end up being where you want to be. And yeah, be ready. Yeah, be ready to take advantage of every opportunity you get. Like, when Vesna came to me to invite me out to Fabrica, there was a bunch of people that could be invited out, but only 2 of us had visas. So, or not passports. It's little things like that end up messing you up for a great opportunity. And I mean, not to say that things wouldn't be good if I didn't go to Fabrica, but I wouldn't trade that for anything. So, and like with SIGGRAPH, jump on, like, there's always calls for things. Like, even if it's something simple as a contest, I mean, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the cloud sourcing design stuff that's going on now, yeah, it's kind of people taking advantage of people being desperate. But if you win those competitions or you do well, you jump into a totally different stratosphere than just some guy or girl working on your stuff on your own. Right. So from my experience looking for a job right now, and yeah, I mean, let me be honest, it's hard to get a job right now. I've had many, many good interviews that it's just like, oh, you have everything we want, but there's people more experienced out there, or the budget's being cut, so we don't have that position anymore. So set yourself up to make it hard for them to say that, like, those things to you. The biggest thing for me was looking at job listings and seeing what people wanted, and like for the first time, and like, oh, I had no idea people were expecting this from me. So find the job you want and see what they're looking for, and make sure you have all those skills before you leave here. Because if you do, you're setting yourself up way better. And a lot of times the people on Twitter that do what you want to do, ask them questions, send them direct messages. Some of them are going to be jerks or ignore you, but some of them, like most of the people I've met in industries, are really, really nice. And they're just like you guys. Like, they were sitting here in some college hoping that they were going to get a job to do what they love. And so when they run into someone that loves it just as much as they do, they're going to open up and try to help you get where you want to be, hopefully. You can see how I did it with the process of that development of that Unravel project for the windows. A lot of times, like, if you do a good project, it's one thing, but if you've documented so people can see the process you take, it opens them up to see how you work, which is always much more impressive for people. So I highly recommend doing that. And just, like, if you go on my website and look at the World Bank thing, it's pages of the designs, why I was doing what I was doing. So people don't just see the design and I hope that they get it, but they see why I was trying to approach the problem like that. Because you need to put it in context, otherwise they're just looking at the YouTube video and like, oh, that's cool, and move on. So, and yeah, when I was here, most of the projects were big projects trying to work in Unreal 3 and stuff, like really complicated platforms. There's platforms out there like Open Frameworks, Processing, Flash for games that are much simpler to do, and people care a lot more about a finished project than they do about a really good idea that you couldn't finish because you ran into technical difficulties. So, I mean, look at the guys like Super Meat Boy. Like, you always hear about those success stories, but people, I mean, I'm not saying don't try to tackle a mod, but if you can do a gameplay like if you have a good gameplay mechanism, that's more interesting than like a giant mod that you're going to get half finished and have one level on. So, right. Yeah, network like you're a decent person, please. I don't know, how many of you guys have been to GDC? And how many of you run into that guy who comes up, says hello, looks at your name badge, and you're like, oh, you're a student, and walks away? Like, yeah, don't be that guy. It's annoying, and you look like you're desperate, and people are going to recognize you as just someone who's smoozing as opposed to trying to get to know people and get into an industry. The friends I have right now are like, what? Yeah, there's, sorry. Friends are going to bail you out. Like right now, with the trouble that I'm having getting a steady job, I'm able to freelance because my friends have connections and they know what I do and they know that I'm a good person and that I'm gonna work hard and they're gonna set me up. So I have a friend at an ad agency in Dubai, and when they were looking for someone to do an interactive piece like Unravel, I was the one he called up. So you never know who's going to have a job that you're able to do, and you want to be the person that they think of. Yeah, don't bug your idols. Like, there's some people that you see them spamming the Twitter wall or emailing them. Like, they're normal people. It's not like, yeah, just don't. I don't know. Some of this stuff may seem common sense, but I've seen tons of people do it, and it's just stuff that hopefully you don't do in the future. And then, oh yeah, I'm always thinking about a new project, even if it's just in the stage of writing notes down. Always be doing something, because as soon as you stop, like if you get a day job and if things come down to it and you get a day job and you're not coding or you're not you're not drawing or you're not modeling, those things start to go away, and you go back to jump on, like, you get a job offer and you take a position and then you stay there and like, how do I do the things that I'm now hired to do? So always just be on the grind thing. Yeah. And then freelancing, it is a pretty viable option, and it's not just something that you can start after graduating. If you're good enough, you should be doing freelancing stuff now, because you're going to find out how to price yourself as an artist, which is a really big deal when you get out there. It can be really confusing. So a lot of these sites, like 99 Designs, someone says, I want this. And then you propose, like you do your design and you put it up there and you get feedback. And you say, I'll do this design, the total version, for this money. And then another guy comes in and says he'll do it for that money. So you find out what you're worth in this super competitive kind of way. I mean, some of these sites I don't think are the best things to happen to design, but as a starting designer, it can be really great for you to get the feedback, find out where you are skill-wise and what you're worth. Because then you're able to go and jump on the Craigslist and find those ads and say, I can do this. Here's the work that I've done that's been published, that people have accepted and is not just homework assignments. And here's what I charge. And this is what I charge, and I've charged it for 5 other people. And get some cash. So that's all that I have. I don't know how long that was. All right, not too bad. Any questions? Vesna?
You only gave us like 2 weeks, which is part of what was going on there. Like, we had to be ready to go. And like,
Yeah.
So to be prepared with your past.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, and you never. A lot of times, that's how it's gonna happen. Like, you need to drop everything and get to Italy. And like, I had to scramble to get the money together, but I happen to have the passport, which is the one thing that is gonna keep you from going. You can, but it's much more expensive, and then you're hoping that it comes in time for you to leave.
I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second part that he brought up that I thought was very good for you all of you to know is documenting the process. We cannot really stress this enough in all of our classes. People, our students, miss that part. Document the process is more important than you know what you're doing at the end.
What jobs have you been applying for, and where regionally are they mostly located, I guess? And
Lots of stuff is for data visualization, because that's what I'm trying to focus on more, is newspapers and startups in California. So the New York Times, Thomson Reuters. Thomson Reuters is like, this is how messed up the economy can make you. I was talking to a guy from Thomson Reuters for months in Italy because he really liked my work and he was doing this stuff. And so I talked to their editor in London, had phone conversations, I was just waiting for me to finish in Italy. And then 2 months before that, Thomson Reuters started clearing house. And so they fired their CEO, and they've been firing people ever since. And so a job that I thought was there waiting for me all of a sudden disappeared just because they're just completely redoing things. And this is happening all over. I had a job cancel an interview the day beforehand because of budget cuts. So, and these are just things where you're like, what am I supposed to do? And I recommend applying for everything that looks like it's something you might do. Because at worst, you're going to get practice interviewing. And people phone interview now, which is almost all the time. And that's kind of disconcerting because you can't read anything from them. And if you haven't done it a couple times, applying to a job you may not get just to get the phone interview isn't a bad idea just to get the practice. Plus, who knows, you might get the job. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Yeah. And yeah, for this stuff, there is a lot more in Europe at the moment, but it's growing in the States. It's growing pretty fast, especially in ad agencies, because everyone wants to do this stuff now. So.
Can you talk more about SIGGRAPH? Because a lot of people here talk about GDC, but I don't see a lot of people talk SIGGRAPH, even though it's...
Yeah, SIGGRAPH was amazing. They do, and every year they do different themes, and they're always doing student calls for work. So it's one of those things where it's a big conference, there's lots of people, and your work can be on display. It's for, how many of you guys are 3D modelers? It's for that. It's for digital design. It's for web design. They've done robotics stuff. I mean, it's not specifically video game things, but there's lots of things that overlap. Pixar usually talks there. So you see some video game stuff and you see some movie stuff. And yeah, I mean, I went to GDC a few times and it's cool, it's fun, but it's very schmoozy to me. Where SIGGRAPH was much more open and you could just talk to people. Now my project was on display, so I was talking to people specifically, but there was lots of student work that I was able to check out that was really, really good and was getting good attention. And I got picked up on a blog and my website went from 20 hits a day to a couple thousand. And it's stuff like that, just having your work sitting at a big conference like that, that's gonna get you a job probably.
What did you get out of it, as far as opportunities?
I'd heard about Fabrica, so I was ready to jump on the Fabrica thing. I've got a friend in London. She's crazy. You know how you swoosh to change pages on the iPhone? She's the one who designed that. She worked for Apple. So I've gone out to London and hung out with her. She's got her own design studio. She's offered me, if I can get out to London to stay, she's offered me a chance to check it out and see what I want to do. So it's just, and I met tons of people, and just because I was on display, you're able to talk to people and they know what you do, and they know that your work's pretty good. So you're talking to them on a whole different level than if you're just cold, oh, hey, I know who you are, and stuff like that. So when I went to Ars Electronica last year in Linz, which is another it's specifically an interactive conference, I was running into the same people and seeing how they were doing and talking about jobs and stuff like that. So it's just having building that network of people that you can, if you run into them, they're happy to see you. So.
If I can just add to this, yes, I'm glad you're mentioning Ars Electronica because we'll be going every year because it's one of the most important international festivals of multimedia, and it's always wins, and it's as opposed to secret, it's topical. There's always a theme going on, and it's a phenomenal way to network. And I will be taking students next year and the following year and so forth.
Yeah.
So kind of think about that because networking is really important. All the important people, the top, the cream of everybody that's doing interactive art multimedia, data visualization is going to be congregated in that area for a couple of days. And I can tell you price-wise, it's almost the same as going to see.
And it's in Austria.
That much
Yeah. There's even network security guys there. The gray suits. There's some crazy hacker group there. They came in and shut down everyone's Wi-Fi. And then they walked into the room with a briefcase, and it turned everyone who was on the Wi-Fi, it shut them to a page, and then started reading anyone who was like automatically logged into Facebook, started reading their status updates out loud. So yeah, and just really cool stuff like that. So, any other questions? I don't know how we're doing on time or comments.
Well, everyone, a round of applause for you, Mr.
Thank you.